Hello everyone, good Friday, and we've got two events we're going to talk about today. The first is the wrap up on a murder that we had earlier in the week. Let me introduce you to our suspect. His name is Angel Gonzalez-Morales. He's 29 years of age. And here's what happened on August the 12th. This happened at the Home Suites, which is located on Highway 27 just north of I-4 in the northeast part of the county. Elijah Johnson, our victim, was shot and killed. He was shot 2 times. He was shot on the second floor, and he ran downstairs and out into the parking lot, into the roadway in front of the Home Suites, where he collapsed. EMS arrived and tried as best they could to save his life, took him to a trauma center, and that's where he died of his injuries. And then we started the investigation. And here's what we found out. We found out that our victim had 26 previous criminal charges. He had a violent history. But I want to underscore that is absolutely, unequivocally no reason for him to be shot on this particular occasion. We see absolutely no reason for that at all. But we do know that we responded there prior to the shooting at about 7:45 in the evening. The manager called about a disturbance. The disturbance involved our victim. We went there and we couldn't determine that there was another party. We talked to the victim. We talked to his mother. And just as we're getting ready to leave, we spent about 30 minutes there, we get another phone call. And that came from a guy by the name of Miguel Negroni. He said he was a victim, that he had a kerfuffle with our victim in the shooting, and the victim in the shooting threw a chair at him, and our victim said, no, he threw a chair at me. But the reason for the phone call from this person, Miguel, was because he wanted an injunction against our victim. Had nothing, and he didn't want to prosecute. Our deputies wrote complete reports. They had waivers of prosecution for any batteries that occurred between the two of them. Everybody was happy, and the deputies left. They were on scene about an hour dealing with the 2 calls about the same event. Then we get a call of a shooting about less than an hour later. Now let me stop and underscore this. The kerfuffle that happened earlier with our victim was not Miguel or any of that, had nothing to do with the shooting at all. Our victim managed to bump into another disturbance. And he's on the second floor, and gunshots ring out. When gunshots ring out, our suspect runs downstairs, and he sees a guy that he knows. He jumps in the car. The red car takes off. Angel tells our witness, it was an accident, I fell down and shot the guy. Our witness doesn't want any part of this, so he stops and tells the guy, get out of the car. And he did, and he ran, and there's witnesses to that effect. For the next 48 hours, my homicide team, which is the absolute best, like in 15 years, we've only had 2 unsolved homicides. And in one of those, we know who the suspect is. The gangbangers won't talk. They worked around the clock to bring justice to this victim. And even though he was out of control at a disturbance, makes no difference. When we arrested the suspect in just less than 48 hours, guess what? That's not the end of his problems, where he's arrested now on our warrant for second-degree murder. He has a trafficking amount of fentanyl in his pocket. So now he's facing a minimum mandatory 20 years for trafficking in fentanyl. We take him into custody. He admitted that he heard gunshots. He was there, but he had nothing to do with it. He doesn't know what we're talking about. He totally denies it. We haven't recovered the gun. Listen, folks, we really want this firearm. So a gun like that on the street will bring you $200 or $300. So if you have this gun on the street, it's worth $200 or $300 to you. We'll pay you $1,000 to give us this gun, okay? Now, if you're sitting there thinking, yee, I'm a convicted felon, I got this gun, hey, we'll work through that. You'll get $1,000. We want the murder weapon. So you can be a witness or a suspect, a witness or a suspect. All we want's the murder weapon. We don't know where that is yet. We know he was hiding out on us for the 48 hours. But once again, with this homicide team, you can go to jail tired, you can run, but you can't get away. So when you look at the 30,000 foot level, was our victim, Elijah Johnson, a problem? Yes. Our suspect, Angel, said, hey, I had a fight with him several weeks ago. So we know that there was a problem there. The problem he was involved with the hour before had absolutely nothing to do with the shooting at this point in time. Our deputies worked through that. So the bottom line to this investigation is it's still underway. But Angel has got real problems. He murdered someone. That's totally unacceptable. And despite the fact that our victim had created some disturbance that night, doesn't make any difference to our homicide team. Every life is precious. And we were going to make sure that we brought the suspect to justice for the victim's parents. Now, once again, there's some loose ends to tie up. The biggest loose end is that we want the murder weapon. So make $1,000, figure out how to get it to us, and we would appreciate it. Are there any questions about that case before I go to the next one?
Can you tell us where the suspect was located?
Yes, we took him in custody in the Polo Park area, Highway 27, just about the North County line.
You by himself?
Well, no, we're not given a lot of other details about, but we were able to swoop amongst him and take him into custody.
And then, so he was shot on the second floor of the hotel?
Yes, and he ran down where he collapsed outside.
And some kind of fight had happened?
Obviously, no one witnessed the shooting. The suspect won't admit to shooting him, but there was that's where whatever confrontation occurred between the victim and the suspect. We even gave the suspect the opportunity. Do you have a stand your ground case here? I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't shoot anybody. So we didn't believe he had a stand your ground case from the very beginning, but we were giving him every opportunity to talk to us about the investigation.
And does he have a criminal history, the suspect?
I believe he does too, yes. You know, you're not going to find any of these people as choir boys on Sunday morning at church, but we take our victims and our witnesses and our suspects where we can find them. I mean, once again, these folks, they're not Rhodes Scholars. They don't have PhDs, but they have the right to live and be safe in society. And when you murder somebody, you're no longer going to be in society. And there was allegations of drug dealing here or allegations of trying to sell drugs there. But all we know is our suspect had a trafficking amount of fentanyl that he called baking soda for his personal use. Well, you can call fentanyl anything you want to. We call it fentanyl, you can call it baking soda.
Other than the scuffle, is there any other kind of motive?
We don't know.
Is there any surveillance video of it?
None. No videos. And we know that they knew each other. We knew that they had a scuffle 2 or 3 weeks ago by the suspect's statements and by the mom and dad statements of the victim. But what predicated the shooting that night on the second floor, we don't know. Okay? Here's the next one. Let me introduce you to Troy Walker. He's 48 years of age. Now, here's a teaser for next week. We're going to do a press conference next week that we have been holding off on until this wrapped up. We did what we call a T3, a telephone intercept, a wire intercept, court ordered, that wrapped up last year, okay? And on September 7th, while listening to our wire intercept, we found out that Troy sold our victim, who's 65 years of age, a female, drugs, cocaine. The next morning, our victim gets up, gets dressed, and is on her way to church when she gets outside of her door and collapses. The city of Bartow, where she lived in the city of Bartow, of course, 911's called, and they rush our victim to the hospital, and she's dead. Now, I've got to tell you, it's a new one on me that on Saturday night you go out and buy some cocaine from your drug dealer, and you snort a little bit, and then you fire up before you go to church on Sunday. Maybe that helps you sing louder, brighter, you know. But I just don't think Jesus appreciates you using dope before you show up at church, but then Jesus takes you where he finds you. So she dies. Now we hear on the intercept some chatter because they're like all scared up, like we sold her dope and she died. And so we start a criminal investigation, and our homicide team gets into this. In the meantime, on October 25th, we wrap up the wire investigation, and we arrest Troy Walker, who's 48 from Bartow, as well as 41 other people. There was about 42 people arrested, and this all centered around the city of Bartow, and then this was a remarkably complex T3 or wire intercept investigation as to the heavy-duty dealing of drugs in Bartow. So we're holding off doing any press on that while we tie up loose ends on the cases and we tie up the loose end on this. Now let's fast forward. We now have our lab information back. The medical examiner agrees that our victim, who's 65 years of age, dies of a drug overdose of cocaine. We have the evidence put together. This week, we go before the grand jury on August 14th, as a matter of fact, and they indict Troy Walker for first-degree murder. There's a specific statute that says if you sell drugs to someone and they take those drugs and they die, then you're guilty of first-degree murder. So Troy sold the drugs to our 65-year-old church lady. She took the drugs, and she died, collapsed and died as she's walking out of her door to go to church on Sunday morning. It's pretty crazy. Now, next week, you're going to see us roll out the rest of the investigation that we completed about the end of October of last year. Okay? But he's charged with first-degree murder. Angel's charged with second-degree murder. So think of your questions on the T3 investigation with the 42 arrests. We sweeped Bartow up. It was mostly Bartow arrest and Bartow proper area arrest. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Sure. Real quick, you mentioned the 2 unsolved homicides.
Yes.
How satisfying is it to have these 2 cases solved?
Well, these 2 cases here are remarkable. But I'm never surprised when we solve a homicide. Look, I can't say enough good about my homicide team. Once again, it's about 15 years. Is it 15? 15 years. We've only had 2 unsolved homicides. If you come to Polk County and commit a murder, you're going to jail. You're going to jail. You're going to be caught. That's how good this team is. And of the 2 in the last 15 years that are unsolved, one of the 2, we know who all the players are there, but they're a bunch of gangbangers and they wouldn't testify against each other. And they were able to conceal the evidence on us. So the bottom line is, we come after you. When you murder somebody in this county, we don't send a homicide detective. We don't just send a homicide team. We send a homicide team, an intelligence team, a crime suppression team, a tactical team. We send investigators. We send 30, 40 people to grab cameras, because you cannot walk down the street anymore that you're not on a camera someplace. You're going to be arrested. And we put that team together. And once again, we started with not knowing where this guy is and finding him. I mean, you're talking about a needle in a haystack. There's almost 24 million people in Florida. We started with a needle in a haystack and had him in custody in less than 48 hours. My homicide team and their colleagues, because they called in several other units and teams to help them. But we stop at nothing to protect people and keep people safe, because we know when people like this walking around with trafficking amounts of fentanyl and guns and shooting, as long as they're out there, somebody in the public's not safe. But they are safe now because he's locked up. Okay? Thank you very much. Take care.